Khaīrē, Philly, and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at John chapter 5, verses 32 through 35, so it's going to be a bit of a long one. Let's get started. Previously in John chapter 5, here is our rubric, and let's read. Allos estin ho marturon peri emu, kai oida hoti alethes estin he marturia hen marturei peri emu. Humes apestal kate pros Ioannen, kai mem marture kente aletheia. Ego de u para anthropu ten marturian lambano, ala tauta lego hina humes so thete. Ekenos ein ho lungnos, ho kai omenos, kai phainon, humes de il thelesate agaliathenai pros horan en toi foti autu. That was a mouthful. Our very first word is allos, meaning another, and we have a verb right next to it. Don't need to parse that. Omicron sigma on allos, which is, as far as I recall, a normal adjective. It's going to be nominative, singular, masculine, and it is referring forward to ho marturon. Note we have the omega nu off of the present stem of this verb with the circumflex. This is martoreo, it's contract, so the circumflex makes sense there. If it were the noun, it would need to be feminine in form, and I know the genitive plural of the feminine would also have the circumflex accent over the omega. But it doesn't make much sense for us to have a genitive plural of witness, since I don't think we've had we've had the plural of witness ever before, and then we've got the article right in front of it. So this is a nominative, singular, present tense, active participle. And should probably stick in there somewhere masculine. Right there with the comma. Going with allos, linked together by the linking verb, and then we have a prepositional phrase. Emu, omicron, upsilon. Peri is taking the genitive, and when it takes the genitive, it means concerning or about. And singular, no, not common. Masculine, because the feminine, or is it common? Yeah, I think it's common. Well, whatever. Not that it matters much with the pronouns in this case. I'm going to go ahead and do the next clause, kai oida. This is a irregular verb in that it uses the perfect form ending. So a, as we have seen before, the first person singular present tense, even though it's a perfect ending, and it is active and indicative. It all has to do with the meaning, as I think I said last time we ran into it. This comes from horao opsamai edon. Horao meaning to see. Once one has seen something, one knows something. So I know now, something I have seen previously is the idea there. And then we enter hoti clause, normal though, with estin, indicative, don't need to parse that. Eta sigma for the nominative, singular. This one is masculine or feminine, so we have to take a look ahead at the thing to which it is connected with estin, and we see the feminine article and marturia there with alpha, so nominative, singular, feminine, therefore alethes is modifying the feminine. Yeah. Circling the wrong thing even as I'm speaking. Hein, note we have the aspiration mark here, the right facing, forgotten the name of that symbol, oops. Well, right facing, it tells us that this is not going to be the verb form, which is unaspirated, so we have hein rather than ein. This is from hos, he, ho, and is a relative pronoun. So ein being feminine, accusative singular feminine, refers back to marturia, so which, and then we have the present indicative form of that same verb. Note again the circumflex telling us that this is a contract, as we've seen before. Don't need to parse, it's just a third person singular. And then peri emu again. No need to parse, just pull that down. right before we move on into verse 33, I want to note that we have the emphatic form of emu in both of these cases. I've added myself into the second clause to indicate that. I didn't think to until after I'd already put the punctuation in. And I'm not really sure why Jesus is being emphatic in this case. Maybe he's exasperated. Wouldn't be surprised if that's the case, since he's often exasperated by people. But moving on into 33, note the epsilon, iota, sigma, which I've already underlined. This is the nominative plural on the preposition, not the preposition, the pronoun. So we have a change of subject, masculine or feminine. You don't really need the neuter. That doesn't happen. And we have our verb right here with apestelkate. Note the E here rather than rather than the omicron, which we would expect with this prepositional prefix. So that tells us it's going to be in a past tense. Then we have the change in stem with this kappa, which then tells us this is the perfect form. So this is apostello, apostela, apostello, apostello, with only the one L, lambda, and then it's apostela, apostolka. Yeah, perfect tense, and we've got the perfect ending alpha, tau, epsilon for second person plural, fitting humes. As a very perfect, active, indicative. So this is speaking about a past tense action. I think at this point, I think John has already died at this point, which makes all the more sense with the perfect. Pros, though we've got present tense, and it could be that Jesus intends the present tense here with marture, and marturon, because John's witness is ongoing. It's lasting even past his death. So pros plus Ioannein, eta nu, accusative, singular, masculine, plus accusative, to John. Kai mem marture ken. We've got another perfect. Note that this one didn't reduplicate, but this one has reduplicated with the mu epsilon. And then we have the kappa between the eta and our personal ending. Epsilon nu for third person singular, active, and indicative. We have this eta before the kappa because this is an epsilon contract verb, as I've already noted twice. So he has given witness. And what does one give witness to? The dative, which we see here with sub-iota and sub-iota under the alpha and the eta here. Feminine, to the truth. Into verse 34 then, ego, the unnecessary, therefore emphatic preposition in the nominative, de, connecting this entire section with this new clause, ou, a negative, modifying our verb prepositional phrase. Anthropou, tain is the wrong form. However, anthropou could be modifying, could be owning tain martorion. Para can, pretty much all of the prepositions in Greek can take multiple cases. But before we say whether it's anthropou owning tain martorion or just anthropou as the object of para, let's take a look at the verb, which is really what we should do all the time. And we have lambano with that omega for our first principal part. Therefore, we don't need to parse it. Lambano needs to take an accusative, which then means our prepositional phrase must close on anthropou, genitive, singular, masculine, plus the genitive. And when para takes the genitive, it means from as source. And then tain martorion, accusative, singular, feminine, direct object of lambano, which means to take or to receive. So yet again, with this ego, Jesus is being emphatic, and I still don't know the reason why that would be the case, except that we humans are pretty dense. And it's all right, losing my voice. Moving on into the next clause, alla, but, tauta with that alpha. This is going to be the accusative plural because we have the singular first principal part again, so don't need to parse. Plural accusative, direct object, neuter, referring to the general things rather than anything in specific. I say these things, all that has come before, hina clause, in order that it's not going to be result, it's definitely going to be purpose in this case. So we should probably expect a subjunctive of some form. Humes, again, from up there. I'm not going to parse that. And then our verb, sotheite. Note we have an eta with the circumflex accent over it. Initially, taking a look at this, we have the verb sozo, which a number of translations not quite correctly translate as heal. Yeah, it can mean heal, but typically the way that Jesus is going to use it as here is to save. But from sozo, with the theta, that tells us we have two options, either the aorist passive or the future perfect passive forms. And in order to determine between the two, we have to ask, is it just the thein, thes, the, themen, thete, thesan, I think, or is it thesomai, I want to say, and so on and so forth, with the theta, eta, sigma acting as basically a addition to the stem for the future perfect passive. We don't have the future perfect passive endings on there. Instead, we have what is clearly the aorist passive endings. But Hina wants a subjunctive. So how would we determine that so thete is a subjunctive rather than the indicative? Well, that comes down to the accent. In the aorist passive subjunctive of regular verbs, it is, I think, in every single instance, a circumflex over the eta. When it is not the subjunctive, then the accent goes to the normal position on a verb. So you note, epsilon here is short. And sozo is not a contract verb. And there's not really anything that's a contract in the aorist passive. It can't happen because the theta is the connecting letter to the stem. So then a circumflex doesn't make any sense on the penult position with a short immediately in front of it. Accent always wants to go as far left as possible on a verb unless there's some sort of particle or pronoun pulling it the wrong direction, in which case it's odds on chance that it would actually be an acute over the omega and an acute over the epsilon. I forget what those are called, but anyway, that's neither here nor there because we don't have one. We have an akanos and an entirely new clause, so that's not going to be the case. So if we had the indicative, there should not be a circumflex. It should instead be, I'm just going to treat that as the omega. So that is an ugly, yeah. It should instead look like that, except drawn better. So since we have the circumflex, we know it is second person, plural, aorist, passive, subjunctive with the Hina clause. On into verse 35, ekanos omicron sigma, therefore nominative singular masculine. Ain, this time with the open, still can't remember, but unaspirated, therefore we have the verb, so that's going to be a third person singular imperfect tense, active and indicative of Amy. That one was always hard to say because the key in front of a new becomes kind of an in sound. It's self, but omicron sigma for nominative singular masculine linked between those two. This word means lamp, and I think the Latin word for lamp here is hapax legomenon, at least for the Bible. We have ho kainomenos. Men should tell us that we have a participle. This verb is kaio, which I would not have known off the top of my head, and it means to burn. Since we have the present stem right there, no changes. Omicron sigma, we just have the present passive, nominative singular passive, participle masculine, modifying luknos, it's so hard to say. And kaiphonon, phonon, we have another one of these, except this time it is the active, otherwise identical, meaning to shine. Humes, repetition of that, don't need to parse. De, connecting the two clauses together. Ethelesate, alpha, tau, epsilon, sigma between the stem of the verb and the personal ending, and especially this eta at the beginning tell us this is a past tense. This comes from thelo in the Koine, ethelo in the Attic. So take a look at this. If there were no eta sigma, then this would be a imperfect. But since there is an eta sigma and we have the augmentation right there, oh, sorry, other obvious reason that I just realized why this is not the indicative is because there's no augmenting vowel. But anyway, since we have augmenting vowel eta sigma, this is going to be another aorist, second person plural, active, and indicative. This means to wish, to desire, to will. And it wants to take an infinitive, which we, conveniently enough, find right here with agaliathenai. Theta, eta tells us this is the aorist passive. Nu alpha iota is going to be the infinitive part of that. And this verb means to rejoice or to celebrate. And it doesn't take a prepositional phrase. Instead, what we have with pros, horon, end prepositional phrase, because that n is actually a time construction. I don't remember seeing pros as a time construction in another location. It's not uncommon. It's pretty deep, though, in Liddell and Scott, I think. But plus accusative, singular, feminine. This means like towards an hour or about an hour. So you all willed, you all wished to rejoice about an hour. N plus the dative, we see because of this article, foti dative there. Autu owning the prepositional phrase, genitive singular, masculine because it's referring back to John. Foti is from phos, neuter. And that is the end of this section, so let's take a look at it in its own context. There is another witnessing concerning me, and I know that true is the witness which he witnesses concerning me myself. You yourselves have sent to John, and he has witnessed to the truth, but I myself do not from man accept witness. The empty space that I should have used, but these things I say in order that you yourselves might be saved, that one was the lamp, the one burning and shining, or lighting, probably with the idea of lighting the path, based on what he says back in John chapter 1. And you yourselves wished to rejoice once, because of aorist, about an hour in his light. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I hope taking a look at this has been helpful for you. And I hope that you have a very happy week before Ash Wednesday. I think that's it. Well, farewell.